This is episode 20 of the Sports Consigliere podcast. I'm the host, Jim Whalen. As along with me is always my co-host Jerry Callow, although he wasn't there last week. But I'd like to bring in a special guest. We kind of had a theme of with the 100th anniversary of the Giants. We kind of kept rolling on this theme, and we're proud to introduce the one and only Stephen Baker, aka the Touchdown Maker, Super Bowl champ in 1990. Stephen, welcome to the show. Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys for having me.
So, how's your golf game? I know just doing a research on things that you took up golf in your older in your retirement days, or
Yeah, man, I wish I would have done it earlier. Had no idea how hard this game could be, but I do a lot of outings with Otis Anderson, and I'm more of the type of guy that just does the scramble format or shamble. Yeah. I don't go out and play for fun because, why play something that's not fun after 3 holes? Because it seems like whatever is going right, it goes wrong. The wheels come off the bus after 3 holes. So I only do the outings where we have fun. It's a team atmosphere. Yeah. Everybody swings.
It's a great social, especially if you got, a couple times a year, you got a great social outlet. But just a little bit of background on you. Obviously, you played for the Giants, but you were born in Texas. You grew up a Cowboys fan. Our producer, he said he's a Cowboys fan, so he was all excited when you heard that. But then you moved to Los Angeles. How was the football scene in Los Angeles at that time? Was it, you hear a lot about the basketball players, you hear a lot about Hollywood's out there. How's the football scene?
I believe we had a school called Narbonne High School that was like cops and whatnot, but I went to a school called Hamilton High School, and the great Warren Moon went there, and Martin from the Raiders, and those were the guys that I looked up to. I said, if they made it, maybe I can make it out of here as well. So Hamilton High School was by no means a powerhouse. We struggled, but I made a name for myself there. I had a quarterback that was converted from center the year before to quarterback, so he just threw it up, and I would just go get it.
So just moving from there, and I guess you graduated from there. You went to junior college. What junior college did you go to?
Yeah, I had to go to junior college, man, because I was a knucklehead. I wasn't a bad kid in school, but I was going to be the first guy to make it to the NFL at 5'8" and 145 pounds. So my studies suffered severely until UCLA and USC came in there and offered me a scholarship, and I couldn't take it. So I had to go to what you call, community college. I went to West LA. Warren Moon went there for 1 year, believe it or not. And
and he went to the University of Washington, I believe, right? He went to
then he transferred to Washington. And so I went there, and that's when I dislocated my shoulder and couldn't play football and had to redshirt. And that's when I learned that I needed to go to the library and start studying. And long story short, while I was there 2 years, I scored 31 touchdowns.
And the touchdown maker, the name, I guess I heard a couple of things. I heard you called yourself the touchdown maker, and then somebody, a reporter when you're junior college said touchdown maker. So
so here's the real deal on that. When I used to play street football, whoever gets the ball get tackled, we called it. I used to score like 4 and 5 touchdowns because people couldn't catch me. So you may be old enough to remember those peachy folders. They were yellow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wrote it down on there just messing around one time and never remembered it again. And then in junior college, the first time I ever got on artificial turf, because like you mentioned earlier, I was a Dallas Cowboy fan. And I always wanted to play on artificial turf. And as fate would have it, East LA Junior College got artificial turf. And my teammate, Charlie Collins, I looked at him, I said, man, I feel unstoppable on this surface. And as fate would have it, I scored 4 touchdowns off of 4 catches. And a reporter came up to me afterwards and said, man, do you mind if I write Stephen Baker, the touchdown maker, words to the effect, go wild or whatnot? And I said, sure, go ahead. And it went on to score 15 or 16 that year. And the nickname just kind of stuck.
And then from there, you went to Fresno. I was in Fresno once. I was out doing the national parks. And I said Fresno was 117 degrees out in July. So how was it playing out in Fresno State? I know, they put their players in the NFL, but how was it playing out in Fresno?
It was different. I was used to the heat because of Texas, but at 105 and all that, I was not used to that all the time.
Yeah.
And but I will say this, I had so much fun at Fresno State. They had a thing they called the Red Wave. And when they did the Red Wave, it was only 30,000 plus at the time. but it was like you were in a bowl. So the crowd, man, when I got back there on punt returns and would score touchdowns, that place was literally electric, the red wave. And and then I know you're gonna go into the next topic, going from 105 degrees to -10
Yeah, so
was culture shock.
yeah. So Jerry, you want to jump in? I know I kind of set the preamble here, so I know you're looking to
Well,
get
Jimmy,
involved.
great job building me up as always. But Stephen, again, thank you for joining us. I was just curious. So you get drafted, I believe, third round, right? 1987. You get to training camp, and who was, the first person to kind of take you under their wing?
I'd have to say Stacy Robinson.
Okay.
Got
Yeah, rest in peace. I know Stacy passed away a couple years ago, so rest in peace, Stacy Robinson. So
yeah, he was a good guy. He didn't, I learned from him. So when guys came in, I would help them because you have to have confidence in yourself. I know what I bring to the table. I'm gonna help you. I'm not gonna keep any secrets from you, even though you're trying to go for my job. But coming in there with Odessa Turner, we were roommates the night a couple of weeks before at a hotel because we had the same agent. And oddly, we went 3 and 4 and we became friends. So we kind of gravitated to each other and we helped each other out. And I also remember the first time Belichick came to us and asked us did we find a place to live yet. And this was probably before the last cut. And we looked at each other and looked at him and said, oh, no, not yet, coach, because we don't know if we're going to make the team. And he kind of just smirked and walked away.
So, I mean, at that time, they were transitioning. You got the receiving corps transitioned from, Lionel Manuel, Bobby Johnson, and you had Odessa and Mark Ingram were kind of like the receiving corps. So, and then 87, of course, is a strike season. So you make the team, but then you're losing your game check. So you're a rookie. It's a strike season. Like, what did you do for money? And like, what did you do to kind of stay in shape? So,
well, imagine being a rookie. You're all excited to play in the NFL.
yeah.
But the veterans like Harry Carson and Pepper Johnson told us, look here, rookies, you guys cross that line. Remember, y'all got to come back here. And back then, we respected everybody, unlike some of these kids today. I was like, thank you, Mr. Martin, for telling me that, Mr. Carson. And I did this thing. And then I, to stay in shape, I was a young kid. I was a little misguided. I said, I'm going to go back to Fresno and go show off to everybody. I went to go rent a car. They gave me a Dodge Ford Fairmont because you had to be over 25 to rent a Porsche or Cadillac. So I got humbled real quickly. But I still stayed in shape when I came back to LA and then came back here to New Jersey, and we still kind of worked out together. But it was a very frustrating season, knowing that the strike was going to happen your rookie year. You're all excited to play in the league, and then that happened. So it was kind of devastating.
Now again, Stephen, so you're coming in at a time, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom Coughlin was the receivers coach. Your second year? Do I have that correct?
I believe it was the second or third year. I think it was the second year because we had Hodgkinson for the first year, and a different change by far.
So now, we all know the Tom Coughlin from Boston College. We know the Tom Coughlin from Jacksonville, and we saw the Tom Coughlin obviously with the Giants. What was it like? Him as your receivers coach.
Well, we knew we were in trouble when he told us that he believed in the Larry Bird work ethic. And don't get me wrong, I was never shy about working hard, but he took it to the next level. I mean, Lionel and him always bumped heads. McConkey always sat in the front and never fell asleep in meetings because of his military training, being a Navy helicopter pilot. But when the lights went on, we knew when to wake up. But I will say this about Tom. Tom made sure that we didn't leave no stone unturned, man. Because when we lined up, when football a little bit, when they bring two, we have to side adjust for the blitz. He made us learn the fronts that would give us a tip what the coverage was going to be. And the night before the game, we had to take written and short answer tests, man, and multiple choice. And if you didn't pass it, you weren't going to play. And another thing we didn't like much because, remember, they only kept 5 receivers. So we have to give the defense a good look. We can't lollygag. Parcells will yell at us, give us a good look so our team can get ready. Then we have to turn around and do our stuff at 100%. Excuse me. So whenever we got a break, we really took advantage of it. We would rest, but not with Tom. He would go when they do a 907, which they don't do anymore, live goal line. He would take us down to the other end of the field and bring a backup quarterback and have us running routes in the end zone. Now, doing all of that stuff, we didn't like it, but as you can imagine, when we won the Super Bowl, we knew why we did all those things.
Right.
And, of course, we love him today, but I'm not going to.
Right.
We couldn't stand him, man. We picked him up one time and threw him face first in the snow, making him thinking that it was love. But I remember Stacy and Lionel, we all picked him up and just threw him in the snow head first and then ran away.
Yeah. Well, and I think, just doing research for the show, but that kind of helped you out because, I don't want to fast forward to the 90 season. I want to get through 88, 89. But, Hostetler was the backup quarterback. You were kind of on the second team. So you had that chemistry when Phil Simms went down in 90. But I just want to jump back to 88. Lo and behold, I think probably one of the unsung people in the 80s, and then Jerry knows this person. I never met him until we started doing, never heard him until we did this podcast. But you said 88 was your best season. You came in shape, and you said you all had Johnny Parker. We had Perry Williams on who sung praises, and also Bill Lard. Same thing. He said Johnny Parker, strength and conditioning coach. Really. The product was out in the field, but Johnny Parker was really the one that kind of got you guys in shape. And you said the 88 was the best shape you've ever been in.
I have to concur because Johnny Parker believed in, I think he said Russian techniques, basically lifting heavy weights quick. So he had us doing snatches, like everything we were lifting was quick and fast. And I have to say, that was the first year that I really took weightlifting serious because I didn't want to get too bulky and pull a hamstring and whatnot. But arguably, that was my best year because of what Johnny Parker did for us in that weight room with the lifting heavy weights quick. Because when I got on the field, and it made sense to me because when you throw a move, you got to be able to do that. And you're lifting heavy weights and doing that when you're not doing it, man, nobody could guard you.
And it's funny, too. It's ironic because, like I said, like Jimmy said, you're the third person we talked from that era who raved about Johnny Parker. Now, fast forward, 2007, in Coughlin's book, he referenced when he took over the Giants, that he had the weight room redone and it kind of went retro. He got rid of a lot of the machines and he went back and he said the program was something that he had from Johnny Parker, which was more free weight oriented. So it's incredible, sometimes you have to go retro. And maybe that's something, like you said, like the guys today, it's a different game. Maybe that's the problem now with a lot of these injuries. Maybe it is the preparation.
I concur. And, Otis Anderson and I have this conversation all the time when these kids get hurt because of practice, the way they practice, man. It's like thud, we always said our bodies would get into shape as the season went on, like the four preseason games. We played more than they play, of course. Then by the start of the first regular season game, you're almost there. But by the second or third, you're there because you're so used to getting hit. You know how to fall correctly. But if you go in thud the whole training camp and then preseason playing sparingly, and then you get into the game, the bright lights are on and you're out there, your body's not used to that. And it's like, oh, Lord, my hamstring. The non-contact injuries really, I blame on their preparation. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jimmy. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jerry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, again, that goes to show you. We talked, like, for example, Billy Yard had a great one. He said, when he first came in the league, he came in and Ray Perkins was the head coach, and he had that Alabama way of doing things. They did 3-a-days. He said there's probably, I think he said there's maybe 25 guys in the NFL today that could have survived back then. And it's probably the same way, in the 80s, Parcells, it wasn't a picnic in any stretch of the imagination.
No, and also to add to that, they could not handle the verbal abuse.
Agreed.
You have no idea the stuff that Parcells would say to get you motivated. And you loved him in the end, but it was always funny when it was happening to someone else besides you.
Well, I think my wife always quotes Maya Angelou. People show you who are not the first time you see them and believe them. And I think when you got drafted, I think Bill Parcells kind of showed you who he was. If you could just tell the people who listen to the podcast, what did he say when you got drafted in that third round, and just to kind of set the tone for you.
Well, it was kind of cool. I got the phone call. I was in Arizona, of course, with Odessa Turner. We didn't wake up for the first 2 rounds because we knew we weren't going to be in them. So we go to the big meeting room, and the ticker tape, it goes across. Before it came across that I was going to be a third round pick, Parcells called, and I'm like, whoa. The first thing I thought about when I got that call was, the Big Apple, the Empire State Building, and all that stuff. And he got on. He said, "Hey, kid, how you doing?" I said, "I'm doing fine, coach." He said, "How do you feel about being a New York Giant?" I said, "Coach, I would love to be a New York Giant, even though I was hoping to be a Cowboy."
Yeah.
But like these kids today, I was just happy to be drafted by someone. Yeah. And he said, "Well, you got one thing you got to do. You got to hate the Redskins." I said, "Coach, you got it." And he said, "Well, we're going to take you in the third round." And he said, "I'll see you tomorrow." And that was it.
So how you describe your first season, 88, what was it like, kind of first full season in the NFL, and also like the offseason going into 89? So,
well, as you well know, like you mentioned, I was always a backup. Sadly enough, Odessa Turner or Mark Ingram would always get an injury, and I would end up finishing up the season. And, one time I questioned Parcells about that. I said, "Why don't you, let me have a chance at the starting job upcoming season?" And he said, "Look, we brought you in here to make big plays. I don't think you can endure a 16-game season without an injury." And, I was like, okay, I'll show him. Basically, on scout team is when I would excel. And that's my message to the young kids who aren't happy with the position they're in. When you're going against a first-string defense, bust your behind so you can show those coaches they made a mistake. And that was my whole mindset, and just be ready when my number was called. And sure enough, when it was called, I got in there. It was just like practice.
Now, again, fast forwarding 88, you had, if I'm not mistaken, right, that was the most amount of receptions you had in your career, the 88 season, right? So what was it like? I don't want you to compare them, but because we'll get to Hostetler in a few minutes. But how was it playing with Sims in the huddle and him as your quarterback?
It was awesome, because I always say this about Sims: he never hung you out to dry. Meaning on a deep in cut route, 18 yards across the middle, he always put it right in the breadbasket. I can never recall having to reach outside the frame of my body to take a lick, because he was so accurate. And football was fun. At one point, I had as many touchdowns as Jerry Rice. I remember looking at the leaderboard thing up there. Yeah. But as you guys well know, we didn't throw the ball a lot back then. Yeah. I don't even think there was a such thing as touches or targets or whatnot.
Yeah, or yak or whatever it is, all that stuff. Yeah.
And we didn't even really care, man, because Mark Ingram and I and all the receivers bought into what was there. The veteran guys brought that out, and they'd won the Super Bowl. So how can you argue with what was going on there? Of course, we would have liked a lot of balls and thrown it all over the place, but that wasn't our formula. And I tell you, we all bought into it, and I did as well. I don't even remember how many catches I had, but I know it wasn't a lot, because we didn't throw a lot. But whenever they threw it, Mark and I said, we got to make some plays.
And it really wasn't really a passing league back then. It was ball control defense. So, not like it is now, where it's, you have bubble screens and all the other creative things. It was a running league back then.
Right. Defense, if you could, offense could just not lose the game, and defense could win it. If you had an outstanding defense, which we had, and all we had to do as an offense is don't turn the ball over and make the plays when our numbers are called. Simple formula.
Well, I think too, I got it up in front of me. You're looking at your 88 stats. It's incredible, because you had 40 receptions, which was your career high, and yet you had over 650 yards. So, I mean, with 40 receptions, I mean, you're 344 yards away from 1,000 with 40 receptions. And I think it's incredible. Those numbers are incredible. I mean, people are listening today probably saying, really? But back then, in a team with a power running game, those were 656 very important yards, and those were very important 40 receptions, especially the way the Giant offense was run.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. And people that know football get it, because, sometimes I know I get that a lot. People are like, wow, you only scored 21 touchdowns in your career. You only had this many receptions. But if you know Giant history, just like you just said, you know what we were going through. And And honestly, I don't even look at those numbers. I don't have my Super Bowl ring on, but it got us a ring.
Right.
And I'm going to fast forward a little bit because I always tell kids this: would you rather catch 100 balls and make 18 touchdowns and make the Pro Bowl, or catch 35 passes and win a Super Bowl? Because I believe Mark Ingram had 37 and I had 35 that year. I came in the third game of the season to start, and he was a full-time starter. So it ain't all about all those numbers and being selfish. It's just about being a team player and being the best player for your team. Sorry, I got off track.
Yeah, that's right.
No, that's all right. And then again, it's like you just
it's all good, man. It's all good.
you just referenced the 90 season. The 90 season, this is an incredible stat. Your average per reception was 20.8 yards. Now, that's incredible because if you think about it, a receiver that's averaging 21 yards a catch, and you had almost 30 catches with a power running game is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And like, you average almost 21 yards a reception, 541 yards on the season, along with a power running game that year, right? The Giants, you had OJ at the end, Hampton, right? Hampton got hurt.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe Lewis Tillman got a few carries that year. The offensive line was solid. I mean, that team, I think more than the 86 team, was a true power running game. And, to have a weapon like you, I mean, like you compare today's game, some people might say, we're in this fantasy football world, but back then, that's money. I mean, and that's, and I think, I don't want to turn into a fanboy here, but, in 90, I think you were one of the most underappreciated in the grand scheme of things of anybody on that team. And I really mean that. And, again, take it to the Super Bowl, you caught a 14-yard touchdown pass at the end of the second quarter, which single-handedly swung the momentum of that game. I mean, I remember sitting there in my parents' living room. I'm watching the game with my dad. I said, they cannot kick a field goal here. They need a touchdown. And I could close my eyes and see that play 1,000 times over. And I believe another thing, because I was obviously much younger back then, I always loved the fact you wore the black, what they reference, the scuba gloves.
Scuba gloves, yeah.
I love that. In the heat, wearing the scuba gloves.
Exactly. No, thank you for saying that, man. But I love those gloves. I believe Mark Bavaro and I were the only two that wore them. I think Stacey Robinson wore them for a couple of times, but it was just something about those gloves, man. If the ball kept going, the rubber would give, but the ball, you could still catch it. And I'd become accustomed to them, and I loved them. And to reference I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, but even when you caught the ball, you almost like caught the ball when you caught it, like you almost like cradled the ball. Like it was like almost like you like when you caught it, it was like you're holding the baby every time you caught it. It was like almost at two hands and you brought it to your chest. Even like you caught the ball was unique. So
well, here's something. If you can remember that game, you're probably too young. But the play before, I had Kelso on me in the seam, in the slot, and Hostetler. You can't see it from the camera angle, but I always loved how Gifford referenced it. He was like, "Oh, that ball was short by 2 yards because Hostetler missed me. He threw it 2 yards short." And I'm like, "There it is. I'm not going to get another chance." But when I got in the huddle, they called backside X flag, which we ran that route against the Cardinals and the Bears, and just a little closer. And I'm like, "Okay, here we go. I got to run the best one I ever ran right now." And when I came out the break, the ball was in the air, and I just went to it. I caught it, of course, and I should have done like you said.
Yeah.
But now I have nightmares because that ball could have easily been off my chest, man, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. But Parcells always told us, just catch the damn ball. Don't be pretty, just catch it. And that's what was going through my mind. I was like, it was no reason for me to drop this ball. So like you said, I cradled it like a baby. Now, if you watch that play again, Mark Ingram ran a post. The DB fell down. Hostetler should have went to him. And Sims let me know that every time I see him. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad you want quarterback.
Well, just
the reason for coming back to me, he was upset that he underthrew me on the play before. And I was, I'm forever grateful for him for doing that.
We're staying on the 90 season. You guys were predicting 8-8. It seemed like you were. So in the 90s, you guys were 10-0. Sims goes down, and then like we referenced before, Hostetler coming in. You guys had that the second team. You had the chemistry. So just talk about a little bit about when Phil goes down, Hostetler gets inserted in a lineup. You guys are rolling, and then is it? What was the mindset of the team? And what was the mindset of everybody behind Hostetler? So,
well, just as I mentioned earlier, we were both backups, and he would say to me when we're going against the first string defense, and we're only looking at cards, but he'd give me a little wink and he'd say, "Bake, let's get him hollered it today." Meaning we're coming out full speed, running the routes. I got on Gary Clark jersey. When we're preparing for the Redskins, and I'm giving it to him, and Haas is dropping dimes left and right. Parcells, God dang it, line up again. And we beat him again. He's like, that's the same shit. I'm sorry, the same stuff that's gonna happen to you on Sunday. Now get in the huddle. And little did we know that the timing was already there. So the fans and reporters that didn't know, they're like, oh my God, Hostetler's in. But like I mentioned earlier, we treated practice like it was game day every time we went up against the dummy first string defense. And of course, who is Hostetler going to look for every time? Me. Yeah. We had so much fun, man. So we weren't worried.
Yeah, but that pass play, you never relinquished the lead after that. After you scored, they never took over the lead after that game in the 90 Super Bowl.
Yeah, and imagine this, telling the guys the night before the game. Imagine telling these receivers today they want all these touches and all that targets, that the night before the offensive coordinator tells you, look, guys, at the end of this game, I want to have the longest time of possession in NFL history. Mark Ingram and I and Stacy, we didn't look at each other and go like, oh, God, here we go. Man, no. Because winning just breeds just excellence, man. You don't, that's my message to these kids. Don't worry about trying to be the best in the whole damn league. Be the best player for your team. That's what I did. It got us a Super Bowl ring. I don't know where I put it. It's in here somewhere.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
But you know what I'm saying?
We saw the videos. We believe you. So.
Okay, so we were a team, and that's what football used to be about. And I don't see that too much today with some of these kids and some of the teams, the way they act.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think too, as a Giant fan, the 90 Super Bowl, the 90 season, I was in high school. Obviously there's not many people at all, even in the New York, New Jersey area, that thought the Giants were going to take down the mighty Bills. And I think historically, as a Giant fan, if you look back the 4 Super Bowls, I don't think, even though Elway scared you, the Giants kind of beat them during the year, I don't think anybody really thought those Giants were going to lose to the Broncos. Now, I don't think anybody could have predicted that how they were going to beat them, which was Sims just rifling the ball all day long. Now, come to the 90 season, you guys pull off a tremendous upset, and then you go into the 2 Tom Coughlin Super Bowls, the same thing. Not many people thought the Giants were going to beat the Patriots. And there's a lot of similarities, with those teams in that, both, the Coughlin Giants and your 90 Giants were facing a premium offense, each time. And I think that's what makes those 3 Super Bowls, as a fan, you're always going to appreciate the first one that you won.
Right.
2, 3, and 4, man, that was a run for the ages. Again, to take down the K-Gun, Jim Kelly, Lofton, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed. And even their defense didn't get enough credit. You had Bruce Smith, Darryl Talley, to Kelso. There was a lot of guys. And then the 2 Patriot teams, from a historical, perspective, some could argue that the Bills offense, I know I'm going to get killed for this, but at the time, the Bills offense was rifling through the NFL. There was a lot. They were coming off a 51-3, over the Raiders in the AFC Championship. There's nobody. That's the reason why Belichick's game plan is in the Super Bowl. And then to go along with that, and again, this is where it goes back to the offense. Everybody's like, the two-man defensive front in the 90 Super Bowl. Belichick did this, Belichick did that. But a big part of that is like what you just said, right? And it doesn't get enough credit. You guys held on to the ball, right? OJ hit the holes. offensive line, the receivers, everybody blocked. Bavaro, you had. I'll never forget this. Somebody said to me one time, they said, "Name the 3 tight ends." Somebody challenged my giant knowledge. Name the 3 tight ends on the '90 Super Bowl team. Bavaro, of course, Howard Frost, and Bob Rusco. Because
oh my God,
people forget he was actually used because that team in the Super Bowl, because he was there to block. And again, that I don't know if we will ever see a team really dominate like that. And at the end of the day, it came down to one kick, but the game plan worked to a T. And I think the time of possession in that Super Bowl, it was really awesome to watch. It was man on man, knocking people off the ball, and that clock kept ticking. And again, it's very hard. As you know, I don't have to tell you, for an offense to get into the rhythm. But everybody comes out of that like, oh, Belichick, the defense, and rightfully so. Cole Banks, I think, had 12 or 13 tackles, which doesn't get talked about enough. There was a few plays, but at the end of the day, you guys controlled the line of scrimmage, and it was phenomenal to watch.
Well, if you remember, Bill Parcells even said that was the greatest game he ever saw because it was football. The linemen just blocking. We didn't score no big plays or whatnot. Right. We just beat them down. And I got to tell you, as a receiver, it was fun. Every time we got in the huddle, ride 32, ride 34. We didn't care. And as you saw, when Ingram's number was called, what he did, he couldn't wait to get a ball.
Right.
And he made that 3rd and 15. So, and to mention Morosco, if you remember the championship against the Chicago Bears on 4th and 1, I loved John Madden's comment. He's like, the Giants are going for it on 4th and 1. That takes a whole lot of guts. And to throw it to a tight end named Morosco.
Right. That was his moment in the sun, right?
Yeah, listen, he's got a Super Bowl ring too. So
number 80. Shout out to Bob.
Yeah. And I think Jerry definitely had a detail, but just going back, I think everybody thought your Super Bowl was a week before when you guys beat San Francisco.
We jumped right on the plane.
Yeah. So I mean,
I'll tell you, I had video of that too when we were on the airplane.
And there was no bye week. You guys went right down to Tampa too, right?
Exactly.
There was no 2-week build up, media day, or anything else. You guys went right to a plane, and then you went right to Tampa. So.
Yeah, and
you could probably, Steven, you could probably make a lot of money showing that video. The question is, what is it rated?
Well, actually, Mark Collins had one of those big old silly cameras, man, and he was walking up and down the aisle and videotaping everybody and some of the coaches' comments, and it was rated G. But I still remember LT on that plane. He just arbitrarily dialed a number in Tampa. And we coming to Tampa and hung up on him. He was doing that the whole plane ride all the way there. But they wasn't expecting us to be there, right? That rumor is true. When we checked into the hotel, they wasn't expecting us to be there. They had pictures or the banners of Montana throwing pitchers to Rice across the street. They were not expecting the Giants to be there. That's what made it so much sweeter.
Well, absolutely. And again, like you said, obviously the Super Bowl trumped that, but you guys ended the three-peat, and again, that the 49ers were and again, that's another game. It was like, all right, I'm happy they got here. Are we really going to beat San Francisco in Candlestick? Then to do it on 5 field goals. I mean, the Gary Reasons fake punt. Eric Howard fumble, strip with Taylor. Yeah. I mean, again, it was a magical ride.
And what does that mean? That all equals up to team. And when we got that ball back, I never forget, Ingram looked at me and said, Bake, it's up to us. And I still take a lot of pride in this, that Earhart called my number to get us the last pass to get in field goal range. And I promise you guys, I ran that route so hard, I darn near sprained my ankle. I stopped on the dime. I was waiting on the ball from Hostetler, because that's the type of, I get excited thinking about that, because we were a team, man. I wasn't going to let my teammates down. They call me, I'm the only one going out on that route. It's called squirrel right, meaning Hostetler's rolling out to me. He's going to have time. I'm doing an 18-yard comeback. And he put it right on the money, man. I stepped out of bounds. We centered it with OJ and Matt Barr kicking that field goal. If you ever get Matt Barr on here, he'll tell you that LT told him, look, you're going to have all the time in the world you need. Can you imagine hearing that from the greatest linebacker in history, and you about to kick the game-winning kick.
Yeah, so.
Even though it did barely get through.
Right.
But he made that sucker, man.
I think after you, Steve, we're going to big drop off on Giants. We might need to help you get a couple guests on. So
It'd be my pleasure, man.
Yeah, but
although Steven, I got to be honest with you, in the NFC Championship game, I did close my eyes when Matt Cavanaugh had to play the one play for Hostel.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie to you there.
Man, you have no idea, man. We always say Matt had the deer in the headlights look. He wasn't there.
Yeah.
And he almost threw an interception.
Correct. Correct. Right.
I remember, I think Parcells, Ronnie, is he okay? Can we get Haas back in? And, Haas was a tough SOB, man.
Yeah. That was a magical Super Bowl, especially, you guys had to deal with it was the Persian Gulf thing. I mean, it was a security challenge. You had, the singer who sung the national anthem, Whitney Houston's national anthem. So I mean, it was just, and being a Giant fan, I mean, like that was like you said, and beating the Bills, like Jerry, I couldn't describe it better, but beating the Bills, and then for you, I mean, you ever look back at the time and say, listen, look back what you did in the Super Bowl. Did you ever look back and say, like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe that,
No. It was a blessing, man. I always say I was 5'8", 158 pounds, and I was the only receiver to score for both teams in the Super Bowl. So it was a dream come true. And every time I see the highlight, I still get chills and stuff because I still think that ball could have ricocheted off my chest. But it was such a remarkable feeling. But we still had to win the darn game. And it came down to that kick, and oh my God, I couldn't even watch it. I had to turn my back.
Yeah. I mean, well, listen, that goes down. That Norwide, everybody. I feel bad for Scott Norwide, but I'm glad you guys won. But after that, Parcells decides because he leaves the team. They had a quarterback controversy. I was the mood in the locker room, and then Ray Hanley. You hear Coughlin being on that staff. Cronell. A lot of NFL future NFL coaches run that league. When Ray Hanley was announced, like what was the vibe of the team? They say, like, what's the Mara family doing here?
Well, I recall, after the Super Bowl, Parcells, his speech to us. I wish I could remember everything, but I do remember him saying, guys, you've been hearing a lot of stuff about me possibly leaving, and he's like, how can I leave this, right? And I remember the big roar that we had. And then as the weeks go on, the rumors start coming true. And then Ray Hanley got the job. And we're like, it's very rare that a position coach is thrust into head coach. At least back then, it usually would be an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. And Ray, he did his best. He was on those 2 Super Bowls. So he figured he let the guys, you guys know how to do this. He didn't have a tight rein like Parcells had. I want to say he was probably trying to be the players' friends. You know what I mean? And sometimes you can't do that, especially at that level. So I really hate that he got a bad rap, and I've never heard anything else from him, But I will say under his tutelage, he did let me start for 2 seasons. I was a starter in the beginning, but we're on a decline then. But I would love to hear from him again. He tried his best, and that's all.
Listen, look at it now. I mean, coaches get hired and fired all the time. I mean, look at the coaches. I mean, I didn't even mention Belichick. I mean, so there had to be. I mean, I'm sure Parcells had to put some sort of stamp on and say, "Hey, this is your next guy." So I mean, I'm sure he did. And he just didn't deliver. So
yeah, he just handled it, I think, the wrong way with the not keeping that iron fist, Because Parcells never let you breathe, let me tell you. A couple times I'm catching the ball real well. He'll say something, hey, Bake, you're starting to catch the ball good. As soon as I drop one, I'll take it all back. Right. You're back in the doghouse again.
I mean, getting back to that too, I mean, I'll probably get annihilated for saying this, but Ray Hanley, it was meant to fail because if obviously Parcells leaves, Belichick leaves to go to Cleveland, and now you say to yourself, obviously, it's well known now. Again, George Young, who he straightened out the Giants. He really did, but he really didn't care for Belichick. Him and Parcells at that time, there was icy relationship, and I think now Hanley comes in. Belichick was obviously very popular with the players, with the fans, and now Hanley comes in, like you said. Who is this guy? He's a running back. He's the running backs coach. It's just, and I don't think he really had a chance, and it's unfortunate, and ultimately, like you said, though, I mean, for you personally, you got to start 2 years, but I think that was the first big. I mean, it was again, the guys replacing not only Parcells, but now you're starting in, after that with a new defensive coordinator. I believe he brought in a gentleman named Rod Rust from New England.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yep.
Read and react defense. I'll never forget as a kid, running into Pepper Johnson with my dad, and Pepper Johnson, you could basically sense that he was not happy with the read and react defense.
So, aggressive, right?
What was that?
We're aggressive. No reason to react.
Giant football.
Well, and then I guess 92. I guess your career's over, and I'm just doing research for your show. Like, you had a tough time kind of transitioning from football into real life. But I guess you met your wife, and she kind of like. Put you in a new direction, and I guess you became a teacher after that. So just talk a little bit about your post career, because listen, the Super Bowl, 90 Super Bowl, everything else is great, but then if you play, life happens. So like, what happened? So what happened after that? So
so me and Otis always say everybody becomes retired at some point, but when you you get released from a team, you do. I don't care. You go into a little depression because all your life you've been in a bubble, and now you're kicked out of that bubble. So I'll be honest with you. I was probably sitting on the couch doing nothing for 2 years. And then I met my wife, and she told me if I wanted to be a sub. And I'm like, kids was always my thing. I adore kids. I love inspiring them. So she got me to go to, I'll never forget the first time I went to a job. It was fourth graders, I believe. I had puddles, sweating like crazy. But they made me feel at home because they were like, wow, you're a former football player. And then you get their attention. And 15 years later, I always say that was my longest tenure at a job at one school, K through 4th, James J. Flynn School in Perth Amboy. The teachers I met, the staff, everybody was incredible. And it gave me a much more appreciation for teachers, that they should be paid like professional athletes for what they do. Because they are, I always told the kids, look, professional athletes and entertainers, they just entertain you for 2 or 3 hours. These teachers are with you for a whole year, and they're molding you and all that. So I learned so much when I did that. And I recently, I don't know, about 4 years ago, stopped subbing. But that 15 years of, hi, Mr. Baker, you have no idea how much joy those kids lifted me up and got me out of my boredom and those bad thoughts. It just wasn't in a good place.
Absolutely.
I give you credit because you close the door. All those kids are yours. It doesn't matter. There's no help coming. So I taught for a year. Yeah, I taught for a year. I became a police officer after that. Because I said, you know what? It's easier dealing with criminals than a room full of kids. So
I used to tell those teachers, you need me to talk to your husbands to tell them how hard your work is, because it's not easy.
So what else do you do to keep busy now? Now you're kind of, do you have any appearances? Do you do anything like?
Honestly, that's all I do, man. Otis Anderson keeps me so busy with appearances. The Giants as well. You see my little helicopter, I believe, in the background. I got like 12 of them. I fly remote control planes, gliders. I do virtual reality. I just have fun. I do speaking engagements. I'm actually with a company called Championship Culture, where we go into schools and elementary, middle school, and high schools. And we've been in the Garfield area a lot. So we go in and we talk to the kids. They get 50 of their best students, and we break them up into groups and have like workshops with them. So that's what I've been doing mostly.
Well, I mean, I think it's great. I know you're wearing the 100th anniversary you had. Did you participate in any of the ceremonies for the team at all, or?
Yeah, I went to the event when they had them all on the field. And of course, I get the question, Bake, how come you're not in there? I'm like, dude, I'm happy that I played with them. I'll be 101. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Really, I am happy for those guys, man. It's I played with a bunch of them. So, I'm just really hoping that Otis Anderson gets into the Hall of Fame. Because that's my buddy, man. We're like this.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'll have Jerry take this episode out, but Steve, I can't thank you enough for blindly come, I blindly sent something back to you, and it's the dialogue, and I really appreciate the time. And like, listen, we've been reliving these memories, especially with Perry, Billy R, and of course yourself on there. And you just like the cornerstone of that Parcells era, the Giants era, and like once a Giant, always a Giant. And like, the fan base. I know you said when we first initially talked, you guys didn't really make that much money. So back then compared to what they're making now. So the Giants, and I said, why do you still live in New Jersey? Because Jerry and I talk about it. A lot of your teammates still live in the area, and it's just like, the Mara family, the Giants, and the fan base really something that really you embrace both sides. The relationship is really a great relationship. So I really appreciate the memories, and and thank you for coming on the show. But I'll let Jerry finish out this episode because as you can see, he's more detail oriented than I am. So
I'm impressed.
No, Stephen, I can't let that last comment go. We have to touch upon that real quick, because there was a great article in the Post about Otis Anderson in the Hall of Fame on how, believe it or not, there's still a following in St. Louis. The Cardinals, there's like an organization that still celebrates the old Cardinals, and there's a push. And like you said, I mean, he's a Super Bowl champ. I mean, he really should be in the Hall of Fame, and hopefully that happens. I mean, I think you compare his stats and to a lot of people that are in, it's a no-brainer. But as we all know, a lot of times something that is a no-brainer just doesn't happen. And I think he will get in. I mean, people forget how really good he was, with the Cardinals. I mean, coming out of University of Miami, and then again, just to finish his career with the Giants, on a high note. I mean, a lot of the younger generation probably don't even remember him as a Cardinal. But I mean, again, a great career, a long career. Body took a pounding. I mean, he was of the back then when a running back carried the ball, 25 times, 28 times a game. And, he deserves to get in. But, hopefully that'll happen one day. And I'm sure, you as his friend, will be there to celebrate that. But again, for me, this is a big honor. You're one of my favorite Giants of all time. We met over the years a few times, autograph shows. I was telling Jimmy it was twice. Always a gentleman. And I think to put your career into perspective, not to tie it to one play, but if you look at the biggest catches by a wide receiver in Giant history, I mean, you have to be up there. I mean, I would say the biggest catch in postseason, a lot of people would say Zeke Mowatt in the first Super Bowl, because that was the first touchdown. Not only did he catch the first touchdown, he caught the first touchdown ever for a Giant in the Super Bowl. But now go to a receiver. Yes, Burris, his touchdown won the Super Bowl. But as far as I'm concerned, your touchdown right before the half won the Super Bowl. So I think at a minimum, it's up there, top three, greatest catches or most important catches, by a Giant receiver. And again, this was a big thrill, a big honor. You had a great career. When you played, I always tell my son this, he always says like, well, who's your favorite player? And I start rattling names off. And I was like, those are guys that played, when I was a kid, when I was in high school, because, those are when that's when you become a fan,
Exactly.
Those 80s to 90s, New York Giants, that it was a big deal, in my household. And, even in the current state, nothing has changed. I mean, the Giants are paramount in my house. So again, personally, thank you. We appreciate you coming on. We look forward to talking to you in the future, and all the best of you and the best to you and your family. And thanks again.
No, I want to thank you guys too. You brought back a lot of memories, bringing up those stats and whatnot. I didn't even know some of those things. So I want to thank you guys, for having me on. And anytime you need me, I'll be here. If you need some numbers from some other players, like I said, I'm in touch with Matt Barr, Sean Langetta.
Nice.
Yeah, let me know. If I can do it, I got you. And matter of fact, November 3rd.
When we get off the air, call Bob.
We want to put
Bob Marsko. Tell him that I was talking about him.
Yeah.
We'll do, guys.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen. Thanks again.
Thanks again, Stephen. And Jerry gives the credit for, because I gave him a list of players to target, and he said he met you a couple of times. So he said, Steve, why don't we go for Stephen Baker? And sure enough, he was right. So I thank you, Stephen, for going on. And then, thanks for everything. Where can we find you on social media at all, or where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm TD Maker 85 on Instagram.
Okay.
And of course, I'm just a big Facebook dude. That's just Stephen Baker.
Okay.
My son may come up first. I don't know why. It comes up Stephen Baker Jr. But Stephen Baker and Instagram TD Maker 85.
And you said November 3rd you have a show?
Yeah, the Giants are having us all back for their the Super Bowl reunion of Super Bowl 25.
Okay.
So the guys are going to come in, I believe that Friday or Saturday, maybe Friday, and then Saturday we do something, and then Sunday I believe we're going to be out there holding the flag after they introduce us.
Okay.
So it's always a fun time.
Awesome.
The Giants are great for doing that. Once a Giant, always a Giant, and especially our 100-year anniversary, they're really doing a lot with the us vintage players, which is really cool.
Yeah, well, at least it gives us a memory. Listen, the team's 2-5 right now, so at least we have something to look forward to. So, but
you got to turn it around.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, there's always hope. Every week, there's always hope. Every Sunday at 1 o'clock, there's always hope. So
you're telling me there's a chance.
Yeah, but listen, we'll be in touch. But thanks for the time, and then thank you very much. But this is episode number 20 with Stephen Baker, aka the Touchdown Maker, K-4 sub. Out. Thanks again.
God bless, guys. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Thank you again, Stephen.